Okay, so one of the biggest and most major weapons that's being used against humanity right now in the spiritual war is division, the whole divide and conquer strategy. It is super effective. It's being waged on multiple fronts in different forms of media, entertainment, social media, through our history and education, and through all sorts of dynamics. And it's relentless. It's so important, and I think that we need to talk about it because I want to dissect these different psychological operations that are being used to divide and conquer. So if there are, certain ones that you want to dive into, or division tactics that you have witnessed that you think that maybe people aren't aware of, put them down in the comments and let me know if there's certain things that you want to bring up in the conversation, because I'm going to do videos on specific ones going forward. This will be like a regular kind of thing. Now, these division PsyOps, psychological operations, are not new. These have been employed against humanity for the longest time. I think, this is really how the dark forces encourage and manipulate citizens to go to war, as an example. It's like Vladimir Lenin said, the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. And we are seeing that all over the show. It's happening in every country across the realm. And some are super subtle and nefarious, and some are very overt and blatant. And I think people are kind of waking up to it and refusing to be divided over every single topic, every single situation, which is great. I love to see that. This awareness is how we're going to make it through. But before I get into the individual division PsyOps, I want to talk about what is controlled opposition, and where do we see it. I think this will start to help people to, maybe take a look at certain things, certain issues or stances that they're taking in their lives, and consider, like, is this a result of manipulation or propaganda or that kind of thing? Because I know that I personally have fallen victim to these psyops in the past, even, lately, like in the current day, because the propaganda machine is strong. There is so much money, time, and effort being put into it. And, we are inundated with these messages and this propaganda and these, what's the word that I'm looking for? Sorry, there's an eyelash in my eye. Anyways, we're just inundated with it. And once you wake up to it, once you wake up to a psyop where you're like, oh, actually, I fell into this trap, then I think, then it's easier for you to kind of see, like, where the propaganda is, what it looks like, how it sounds. However, there's so many machines that are pumping out at the same time, and so many ways that this is being weaponized. And it's interesting because, over here on this side, you'll be like, oh, that's actually very clear. I can see that psyop very clear. And then over here, maybe it's a little bit more subtle, or it's a little bit more integrated into your life, or it hits on a certain trigger. So I want to talk about all these kinds of things because I think it's important for us to open our eyes and to open our ears, to open our third eyes, and be more aware of what it is that we're consuming and how it is affecting our emotions, our decisions, our actions, our behaviors, our interactions with others, and all of these kinds of things. These can be hard messages to consider, and these can be hard things to take a look at yourself, because you have to be really, really objective and honest to be like, hey, am I being led down a path right now? Are these thoughts and feelings really my own, or am I being convinced of something that maybe isn't true in order to weaponize my actions, my feelings, my energy towards a certain goal, which ultimately is division. Because you guys, remember, I say it all the time, we are all one. I fully believe that. And if you're watching this video, then I hope that you believe that as well. Okay, so what is controlled opposition? Well, I think I've been talking about it here at length a little bit. I don't want to repeat myself too much, but basically it's the understanding that there is one side of a story or a narrative or a situation or an issue, and there's another side of that same issue or topic, and they are at opposite ends typically of a polarity of a spectrum, and are in opposition of each other, obviously. However, the messages, the information, and the force behind each side of this spectrum is being orchestrated by the same group of people, or the same faction, or the same party, political entity, or entity in general. And basically, both sides are being controlled by one side up here. And we see this in politics. I am a firm believer that the left wing and the right wing are two wings of the same bird, right? Red versus blue is a lie. Maybe you've seen the pictures, maybe you haven't, of former presidents from, both sides of the aisle hanging out together and having a gay old time. And clearly they are friends. They are not actually in opposition. It just kind of looks like it. It is theater being presented to us. We see this so that's like in, I would say, like individual country politics. And we see it in also, I think, the overarching nationalism politics. I don't know exactly how to say it, but world politics, where, we have one country pitted against another country, and they're not actually friends, is what we're told, and we need to choose a side because one of them is good and the other side is evil. But ultimately, they work together in many ways, whether it is trade or diplomacy, or they're going to certain conferences together, they're making decisions together, they're kind of working in lockstep, one might say. And research things like the Antarctic Treaty. That one's really interesting rabbit hole to go down. And once you see that and see all the countries that are involved in that one, then it starts to feel pretty clear that these guys are actually kind of working together, or very, very much so working together. We see it in politics, or sorry, media. Just want to stay on politics. We see it in media, where we have the mainstream media versus alternative media. And certain alternative medias are funded by the same people or the same entities that the mainstream media is funded by. In some countries, I really question, is there even such thing as alternative media? We see it in healthcare as well, where certain remedies are being pushed by certain voices, and then other remedies are being pushed by another voice. But at the same time, they are both pharmaceuticals coming from the same corporate entities, things like that. And basically, it's any narrative where you feel forced or compelled to choose a side. And I find what often happens is people end up identifying with that side. It becomes part of their identity. It becomes, um, really ingrained in who they see themselves, in their values, and the conversations that they bring, and it becomes like really emotional. It can become a really emotional thing, and that's because these psyops, these the controlled opposition, they really know how to target emotional responses, things such as like your fears, uncertainty, doubt, and ultimately their goal is to get you so invested in one of these sides that you will argue with someone about it, that you will start to see another group of people, or another country or another whatever, as an enemy. And it's interesting because who is the real enemy here, right? Is it the red and the black ants that are in the jar that's being shaken, or is it the person that's shaking the jar of ants? I don't know. You tell me. And then often what tends to happen is you get so emotionally invested in this position that you start to think, well, my side is the right side. And everything that you're consuming, the people around you, you start to build this network of confirmation bias, this echo chamber, if you will, right? Because you don't want to consume media that is going to have the opposite opinion or the opposite viewpoint as what you have, because you've done your research and you've been consuming on the other side over here, and what they're saying makes sense and feels really good to you, like it hits on your emotional triggers, it fits with your values, so that's the one that is correct. And this one is, completely disregarded. Where I tend to have found personally for myself that the truth is typically somewhere in the middle, and there are good points over here and good points over here. And that's why both groups can become so incredibly incensed and invested and attached to their position, because, ultimately, I believe that people are good, or they want good to happen for themselves, for the people in their lives, and for the world. That vision or that definition of what's good and right might differ, but I believe that ultimately we have this internal moral compass, and it is pointing towards what we want, for the good of all. I truly believe that. It's just like, how is that defined, and how are you being manipulated, literally, based on what those values and what that vision looks like? I don't want to feel like I'm lecturing or being judgmental or anything like that. Where this is coming from is a place of self-reflection, because, like I said, there are many psyops that I had fallen victim to myself. Like, I used to be, I don't know, addicted, obsessed with the news. And it was crazy. Like, I would watch and consume so much news, so much information that was coming out of the media from every side, and different countries as well. Like, I was, whether it was right leaning or left leaning, wrong hands. But anyways, whether it was right or left leaning, whether it was more moderate or libertarian, or, American, Canadian, European, British. I was watching also like Indigenous news in Canada here, like anything and everything. I was just consuming it. And I noticed how convincing and passionate each side was. And if there would be times when I would focus more on one side, then I could see how I was being pulled one way, or if it was the other, then I could see how I was being pulled the other way, because I always considered myself to be pretty neutral on a lot of things in terms of the political spectrum. So I can absolutely relate to what that feels like to be kind of in that echo chamber and to have that confirmation bias and to feel really proud and firm in your beliefs and that my side is the right side. And why is that? And like, okay, so the propaganda machine is so strong, and that's because they know what they're doing. They have been doing this for a very, very long time, and they use sophisticated methods, and it's just getting more and more intense. The brainwashing tactics, subliminal messaging, neurolinguistic programming, all of it is being implemented and used in the media, and not only just in the news, but now also through social medias and all of these alternative news sources and videos that you're seeing on the internet. And it's and I'm smiling because here I am recording a video for the internet. But it's true. Like, if you only watch my videos, then that's going to influence your way of thinking as well. And is that correct for you? Probably not. I personally think that, it's really important to get your information from multiple sources if you want to be that informed, or at least critically think about the information that's coming your way and who is paying the person that's speaking. If someone is telling you something, they are selling you something. I believe that. And what are they selling you? Who are they selling it for? And what is the agenda? What is their intent? Right now, I can firmly say that my agenda and intent is simply to share my knowledge and my experience and the things that I think that are important with the world while we're in this spiritual war, because I think my side is the right side. Okay. But it's true. But my whole point of that is that it's really important for you to critically look at everything and question everything. Like, question me, question yourself, question the TV, question social media, question the influencers, question everybody and everything. No one should be above questions. And I think a real good litmus test is if the person or the entity or the corporation or whatever it is, the government, if they are truly speaking to you from a heart-centered, soul-led space for the highest good of all, then they are not going to be afraid of being questioned. This is why I say at the end of every video, if you have any questions, pop them down below, because I mean that. I don't think I have all of the answers. I don't think anyone has all of the answers. I think we're meant to figure it out together. And I think that that's really important. Like, when I look at, okay, like, what is the solution to controlled opposition and these division tactics? Because there has to be a solution, even though we're inundated and it's surrounding us 24/7. There has to be a solution. And I think that that's the first step, is to question everything, to go back to, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, my parents always used to say, don't believe anything you read and only believe half of what you see. I think we need to go back to that, because we have now gotten to a point where we believe everything we read, we believe everything we see. And with AI and technology as advanced as it is right now, we really need to go back to that. People are like fact checking all over the place, and we know that that's not legitimate. Who's paying the fact checkers and why? What kind of agenda do they have? and how are they actually performing these fact checks? How scientific is it? How unbiased is it? Spoiler alert, it's not scientific and it's not unbiased at all. So we need to really go back to that, to question everything. What are we seeing? What are we hearing? What are we reading? And how genuine, how truth filled is it? And then look within and then sit with it, right? If you watch a video or see a news article or come across a post and it's generating an emotional response in you and you're starting to feel a certain way against a certain group of people, then sit with it and think to yourself, is this based in fact? Is this based in truth? Or am I being manipulated? Am I being led down a path? Because only you know. And this is important, I think, this inner discernment. There are tells in our body, I believe, that alert us to when we know what the truth is. And it's important to learn that discernment, to practice it, to sit with your intuition, your heart's knowing, your inner wisdom, your soul's recognition of the truth, and to really consider, okay, what am I taking in, and how does this make me feel? Just straight up, just like that. How is this making me feel, and why? And I think the more that we do that, the more we develop this bullshit meter, or whatever you want to call it, where you can really start to see, like, oh, that's trying to make me feel this way, or that's trying to convince me of this. And then you can decide for yourself whether it's valid and appropriate for you or not. And then rely on your personal experience as well. I think that that's the third major key here is, if you hear something in the news or you see something and it's starting to push you towards one side of a narrative, one side of that polarity spectrum, think about, well, what is my personal experience with this issue, with this topic, with this situation, or with this group of people? And if you don't have personal experience there, try to get it. Like, test it, and see, am I being sold up the river, or is there validity to what I'm being told, to what I'm being sold? I think that that's really, really important. And, people might say, well, that's anecdotal, personal experience. It's not scientific. If there's a statistic that comes out that's leading you towards a certain place, then they can say that your personal experience is invalid. And I think that that is a fallacy in its own, because that's kind of like appeal to authority. That's kind of like, just because this statistic exists, then that negates all of your personal experience, which is ridiculous, because really personal experience is one of the only things that we should really trust, because it's firsthand, it's real, it's verifiable, and it's repeatable. And that's the scientific method, right? If you have a hypothesis, you need to test it. You don't just jump to the conclusion, you actually try to disprove that hypothesis. So if you don't have personal experience in a certain issue, topic, or situation, then I say try and get that. But if you do, then really consider, okay, what is my personal experience, and is it in line with what I'm being told? And then kind of go from there and talk to people. I think this is a real big one too. Like, in this age of social media, and especially over the past 6 years, people aren't connecting in person as much as they used to. And I think that this is really, really, really important, because it's very easy to divide a society, a culture, where there's no personal, human, in-person, live interaction. if that makes sense. And and so I would encourage you to like get out there and talk to people, like talk to real people. Internet debates can be fun, but are they real? A point that I wanted to make as well, talking about this propaganda machine and the amount of money that's poured into it, are these bot farms. Most of the time when you're arguing with someone on the internet, is it even a real person? Is it an AI? Is it a bot? Is it one person sitting in a room full of cell phones and doing, like having multiple arguments because they're getting paid to push certain narratives and certain sides of the agenda? Chances are probably, like, you need to ask yourself that. Unless you know the person in front of you, then that has to be a question, because that's how deep these dark forces have gone down this path to separate us from each other. And it's so diabolical. And that's what I would say. Like, arm yourself in these ways, using your brain, using your voice, using your inner knowing, your intuition, and connecting with people. Because if they're trying to divide us, then the ultimate opposition to that is to connect and to realize that the person sitting next to you is not your enemy. We are all in this together. We need to join forces, as a matter of fact, and work against the dark forces. And so that's kind of how I wanted to start this off. Because what do they say? That it's easier to fool someone than to convince them that they've been fooled. And that's true. Once you fall down into one of these traps, into one of these holes, and you are at the point where you are completely divided from this group of people based on whatever topic, then it's harder to pull yourself out of that and to admit, like, oh, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't have the personal experience, or maybe I was being sold a narrative to fulfill an agenda with the goal of division, dividing humanity. So I would say consider that, sit with it, see where that brings up stuff for you. If you have questions, thoughts, or comments, pop them down below. If you don't agree with something I've said, I would love to hear it. Let's start a conversation about it. And if there's something that you want to add, and again, if there's a specific division, PsyOp that you want to dive into, put that down in the comments as well, because I would love to hear about it. I've got a few on my list that I'm going to get into. So I'm really looking forward to that, so we can break these down and start to rebuild our connections and come together. All right. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one.